North Korea is the only country in the world where the government is using cyber attacks to make money. 50% of the ballistic missile nuclear program of North Korea is funded with cybercrime.
In terms of cybersecurity, how is Japan doing?
This is a highly technical country. The biggest downside I see in cybersecurity for Japanese companies is the large amount of legacy systems.
Do you think internet was good for human beings or was it a bad thing?
Was it a mistake?
Was a mistake. はい、ピボットの竹下です。世界的なサイバーセキュリティ専門家のミッコ・ヒッポネンさんの話、後編をお届けします。前半は、サイバー犯罪ユニコーンという、スタートアップのユニコーンみたいな大きなサイバー犯罪組織がいるという話をしましたが、後半ではなんとウクライナ戦争がこのサイバー犯罪の影響を与えているということを聞いていきたいと思います。後半もですね、なかなか日本では聞けないかなりとっておきの話が満載ですので、ぜひ聞いてください。You mentioned Robinhood. So what are their narratives? Are they saying that they're doing this for to get money from the rich people? Or are they using such kind of narratives to justify their crimes?
Well, I don't think they think about the victims too much. They just want to make money, and they're not going to donate the money to others. They keep the money, but the thing that we do see is that they try to avoid local victims. They try not to hit victims in their own country. So, for example, Russian cybercrime gangs don't hit Russian targets. They avoid Russian targets on purpose. They go to great lengths to make sure that they don't have local victims. And this has nothing to do with patriotism. It's not about protecting the homeland. It's simply to avoid the local law enforcement.
Also, they won't be caught.
If all the victims are in faraway countries, local law enforcement doesn't care.
So do the governments know that they're doing this, or they're just doing nothing?
The governments know.
No.
In some cases, the governments are part of it. If we go to a closer example, we have North Korea. North Korea is the only country in the world where the government is using cyber attacks to make money. When we look at other governmental attackers, there's tons of examples of both Eastern and Western governments using cyber attacks for espionage, for spying. Spying is collecting information. Today, information is data. So hacking and cyber attacks are a great way to spy. Pretty much all countries do that.
Right.
Then when we look at military applications, we have cyber weapons, we have cyber war. Russia and Ukraine are waging a cyber war against each other right now, in addition of the real world war. But the only country in the world which goes beyond espionage and sabotage is North Korea. North Korea has been using ransomware to make money. They've been hacking Western banks to steal money, and they've been hacking cryptocurrency exchanges, including exchanges here in Japan, to steal Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, and Zcash. And the reason why they do that is that it's a highly sanctioned country. They know that the only currencies which cannot be sanctioned are cryptocurrencies. Real-world currencies are based on politics. Cryptocurrencies are based on math. And you cannot sanction math. You cannot regulate math. You cannot pass a law which changes math. It doesn't work like that. So they know that this is the only currency they can steal and keep. And the latest reports from US government estimates that 50% of the ballistic missile nuclear program of North Korea is funded with cybercrime.
That's the dilemma of internet because, Bitcoins, although cryptocurrency, it was meant to be free from nation state, which is in part a good thing, but also it's a kind of a haven for criminals. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the difficult part.
I always carry one with me. Let's see.
Oh, wow. What is this?
This is 1/10 of a Bitcoin. It's not a whole Bitcoin.
Wow.
But, it's something which is handy to keep around in case you need some extra cash. Well, probably not in real world, but it's a good thing to show to people because people typically never see physical Bitcoins.
Right.
It's always virtual. But these kind of attacks where, for example, North Korea is using cryptocurrencies to evade sanctions are very real. And it really sounds like a movie plot or
it's like science fiction.
Like governments using ransomware to steal cryptocurrencies to fund their nuclear weapons. Like, give me a break. But this is really happening. Like, we investigated a case 4 months ago. We found an attack which we thought is coming from a nation state. We weren't sure which country, but it clearly looked a governmental attack. And then when we were tracking the attackers week after week, one day they made a mistake. There was a group of attackers, and one Monday morning, they came to the office. The attackers came to the office and started their working day. And one of the attackers forgot to put on a security cloak. They reroute their traffic through proxies and VPNs. We saw the real IP address for 5 minutes. Then they realized and put on the proxy, but the real IP address was exposed. And this was really easy for us because the whole country of North Korea has 1,024 public IP addresses, and this address was one of them. And only government people have access to internet in North Korea, so
you can track down.
We know who it is.
Okay. I just want to go into detail so to get the idea of what happens to an organization if they're attacked. So in your book, you mentioned about Vastamo, which is a psychotherapy service. Could you walk us through for viewers who are not familiar with the news?
Sure.
Yeah.
This case is one of the saddest cases I worked throughout my career. So Vastamo was a local Finnish psychotherapy center. And I'm saying was because it doesn't exist anymore. It went bankrupt because they got hacked. This was one of the largest, it was the largest private psychotherapy chain in Finland. They had offices in all major cities. Finland only has like 5.5 million people. This private chain had like 40,000 patients on their patient list. So pretty sizable part of people who were seeking psychotherapy services were using this. They got hacked. The database of therapist reports was stolen, which means the reports of your discussions with your therapist, the secrets, the deepest secrets you have.
That's the most private information you don't want to get hacked.
Like, what do you discuss with your therapist? Your real thoughts about the people around you, what you really think about your wife, your boss, your children. All of that was stolen. Then the attacker started blackmailing the patients. So every patient got an email that, hey, I have your notes. I know the trouble you're going through. I'm going to publish these unless you pay me Bitcoin. So every single victim got this notice. And in the end, unfortunately, the attacker leaked out the database anyway. So all these...
Even they paid?
It doesn't matter. If you paid, it was still leaked. So we have now tens of thousands of people whose private information, including their private contact information and home addresses and social security numbers were leaked, but also all the discussions they had with their therapists. And they will be out there on the internet forever. This includes children. There were young children as patients and people going through divorce and people with eating disorders and like destructive thoughts. It doesn't get much more sadder than that. I worked with a lot of victims of this breach when it happened 2.5 years ago, and I'll take the experience with me for the rest of my life.
What's the lesson we can learn? Why were they attacked?
They were attacked because they were doing a lousy job protecting their network. The victims and the therapists did nothing wrong. The company, the private psychotherapy center, wasn't investing into security. Breaking into their systems was trivial. Stealing their files was trivial. Even though all of this was stolen, they didn't notice. The data was stolen for 2 years.
2 years and they didn't notice.
They didn't notice. So this company wasn't taking the responsibility for safeguarding such critical medical data. And as an end result, it did go bankrupt.
So if something similar happens to a Japanese company who are maybe watching this video, what should we do? We should call Withsecure and what should we do?
Now, of course, you should call a professional. I mean, this is the same thing as you do with anything related to security. Most organizations don't have the expertise in-house for physical security. Same thing with cybersecurity. So incident response teams, the kind of teams that we operate, are available around the clock and will come over when there's a data breach or data leak or ransomware case, and we'll work with the companies which have been hit to help them. And that's the thing. That's the thing which has kept me interested in this field and has kept me working in this field for decades. we get to use our skills, our tools, our experience to help people. Like when our phone rings, when someone gets in touch with us, it's almost always someone who needs help. Help me, help our organization. We are under attack. Can you help us? We've lost our data. We're down. Can you help us? And when we can help them, when we can use our experience and tools to help them, that feels very important, very powerful. And that's the thing which has kept me in this field all my life.
So I have like a slide of Withsecure. So it's established in 1988. Wow, that's quite
a long time ago. I joined the company in 1991. I was 21 years old.
So
I'm a cybersecurity salaryman.
Salaryman, okay. You're professional. So you have 1,200 people around the world.
That's right.
So what's the strengths of a company like Withsecure? Because when I think about cyber criminals, I tend to think about governments or maybe Interpol, like tracking down the criminals. What's the strengths of a private company like yours to tackle this problem?
We work extensively with governments, extensively with law enforcement. I've been an advisor for Interpol. I'm currently an advisor for Europol. And most of the expertise in all countries in this field is not in the public sector, but in the private sector. So public sector is relying on expertise help from the public sector, given to public sector by private sector, because that's where most of the best technical skills are. Of course, private sector can't solve this problem. I'm not a cop. I can't go and arrest anybody, but we can work with law enforcement when we have the information and intelligence to go and catch online criminals. So this is a prime example of public-private partnerships. We need both sides to work together. And this is the reason why our company has been operating for all these decades. I think the unique thing security companies like ours are really offering is trust, to be trustworthy. We are headquartered in Finland. Big part of our employees, maybe half of these employees are in Finland. Finland is the least corrupted country in the world. When you look at international rankings, it's one of the safest and securest and least corrupted countries in the world. We trust each other in Finland. You can trust a Finn. And we've been around for 35 years, which proves we're trustworthy. And that's another thing which has kept Withsecure succeeding through these decades.
So in terms of cybersecurity, how's Japan doing? Can you illustrate just to get the general idea?
Well, this is a highly technical country. There's a lot of technology companies. Some of the best technology companies in the world are right here in Japan. People are highly educated. People are aware of security risks. There's a lot of great upsides here. If I have to name a downside, the biggest downside I see in cybersecurity for Japanese companies is the large amount of legacy systems. Old, outdated, unpatchable systems. And this is a typical problem you have with very large and old organizations.
True.
And Japan has tons of companies like that. Very large, have been around for decades, in some cases have been around for hundreds of years. And they've been building technical depth. There's lots of systems which were taken into use in 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, and some of those are still running. Some companies still use these.
Yes, and fax machines.
And yes, exactly, which is a really big headache for security purposes. One of the most important things when you're building security is to make sure that you can actually manage the environment and you can keep them up to date. Killing old systems is crucial, but it's really, really hard to do.
Why is it?
It's easy to say that just get rid of the old systems, but then you realize how many different parts of the company rely on those things working. What I have here with me is a punch card.
Yes.
This is how we used to store data in the 1960s. And this is an example of legacy technology which doesn't exist anymore. Nobody's using punch cards anymore. But this is from 1964. So it takes decades for us to get rid of old technology when it becomes common enough.
So do you think Japanese companies are very vulnerable right now at the moment?
This is the vulnerability, the most typical vulnerability in Japanese companies. They have knowledge, they have tools, they are investing in security, but if you have old, unpatchable systems, you can't secure them. And if you can't kill them, then you have a vulnerability. And that's the biggest problem I see here.
What should we do? We should change all the systems?
It requires investment.
Investment.
And that's, of course, easy, once again, easy to say, hard to do.
How about individuals? As an individual, what can we do? We have iPads, watches,
smart devices.
Yes. Yeah. Should we like put a band-aid on the camera so we can...
Oh yeah, band-aid on a camera is not a bad idea. I do it myself, and I'm 100% certain that my laptop isn't hacked, but I have a band-aid anyway, just in case. Then again, I don't have a band-aid on my iPhone. Maybe I should have it here, but then I couldn't do like video calls.
Right.
And even if you have a band-aid on the camera, it could still be listening to you, and you wouldn't know. It's a hard problem. We shouldn't become paranoid. I mean, not the whole world is not out to get you. But there are criminals in the online world, and we should realize that some of the attacks we see are going after home users as well. I mentioned ransomware earlier. That's an example of the attack, an attack which used to target home users. It's no longer targeting home users. Today, a very typical attack against home users would be to try to gain access to your email. For example, your Gmail or Yahoo account. And the thing the attackers do once they gain access to your Gmail or your Yahoo mail is that they go through your history and try to find all the accounts you have in different online stores. Obviously, when you register to an online store, they will send you a welcome email, and the attackers will find these emails from your archives. And now they know that this email address, has an account in this online store. Next, they go and try to log into the store. They try the same password as you had in your email. And if you have a different password in the online store, it doesn't matter. Because they can just try logging with your email account, and then they click the magic button, the button which says, I have forgotten my password. And then the store will send a new email to the email which they already control, and now they can log in as you, and they can use this to buy online shopping vouchers from online stores using your credit card simply by gaining access to your email. And this is the reason why the most important password you have is your email password. Don't use that anywhere else. If it's weak, change it today. Make sure it's long enough. Never log in from outside computers to that account. Or if you have to do that, then change the password later on. And if you can enable two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication or passkeys, you should do that.
How frequently do you change your email address and password?
I don't change my email password ever, because I use a passkey in my email accounts. Passkeys are mechanisms which go beyond passwords. So it's using biometrics to authenticate myself from a specific device. So multi-factor authentication, password managers, and passkeys is the way to get rid of passwords. And nobody likes passwords.
Right. So you mentioned Google. So the interesting part about your book was you mentioned Google that, technically, if someone wants to send a spy to Google, they just go to Silicon Valley, join Google, and become a manager, and they'll become a spy. Do you think that's happening right now? People going to all those big tech companies right now? Or
Yeah, we believe it is happening, and we have some real examples of that happening. And there are some surprising stories. So, for example, there were 2 spies for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a very undemocratic, strict country, and they have reasons to collect information about, for example, people who have left Saudi Arabia and are criticizing the government from outside of Saudi Arabia. So 2 of their citizens were working inside Twitter, collecting information about Saudi dissidents, tweeting or criticizing the government. And we know that one of those persons left Twitter at some stage and went to work in Seattle for Amazon, working for AWS. And the Amazon Web Services cloud is the biggest cloud in the world. Big part of the world's information is right there. And I don't think it's a coincidence he went to work at AWS.
Is there any way to prevent that? It seems like 100% impossible to prevent such a spy getting into a big company.
You're right. It is a hard problem. How do you trust every single one of your employees, especially when you have a large company? You probably can't. So the next best thing is that you don't give too many rights to any single user. So you would always have, teams working together. 2, 3, 4 people working on the project together. So not a single person can do things that are not supposed to be done.
And also, the scary part of your book was about AP tweeting a fake news or disinformation about President Obama, which there was a 2 explosion in the White House. But it was not meant to give disinformation to human beings, but to bots.
That's right.
Which affects the stock exchanges.
We've seen a couple of examples of this, that people who want to manipulate stocks or stock indexes send out fake messages by taking over accounts or getting something trending. There's the Obama example or explosions in White House example, and there was some fake video images which were just being used to say that there's been an explosion outside Pentagon. And of course, some people get scared, but that's not the point. They're not trying to scare people. Big part, most of the stock trading today is not being done by humans, but by stock trading robots. We call them HFT, high frequency trading. And these bots monitor trends and then buy and sell stocks based on that. And when they see something trending in social media, they use that as well. And it doesn't take much for a bot to figure out that keywords like explosion and Pentagon mean it's bad news, which means they start selling stock. So whoever sent that fake tweet knew exactly the moment when the stocks would tank. And they won't stank for long. I mean, they will recover within seconds.
Yes.
But that's enough. If you know exactly when it's going to happen, you know when to sell, when to buy.
And they make tons of money.
And they can make tons of money. Money makes the world go around.
So before wrapping up, I would like to ask about AI. What's your take on AI and all those ChatGPT phenomenon?
It's the next big revolution. It's going to change the world more than the internet revolution. It's exciting and it's scary at the same time. Companies like OpenAI are not only trying to build systems like ChatGPT or DALL-E, which is the image generation algorithm, or Codex, which is the thing GitHub uses for GitHub Copilot. They are really trying to create artificial general intelligence. That's the mission of OpenAI. They are trying to make us the second most intelligent being on the planet, which sounds scary. And we are scared for a reason. Then again, I do believe that we will end up with superhuman intelligence and artificial general intelligence one day anyway. It's going to happen one day anyway. And I would much rather see us cross that line with an entity or company which is trying to do it safely and securely. And OpenAI is an example of a company which is really thinking about how to do this safely and securely. And if we get to superhuman intelligence the right way, it's going to be great. It's going to be like a utopia.
Right.
Then again, if we get there wrong, it might not be a company like OpenAI taking us there. It might be some Chinese totalitarian company or terrorists or Russia, Vladimir Putin. We don't want to see that future. So I don't think the right thing to do now is to delay. This is going to happen one day anyway. And the more we delay, the closer we are to future where the entities taking us to that new era would be an entity that shouldn't be taking us to that era.
So we talked about cybercrime unicorns, but if in the age of AI, at least the cybercrime unicorns are human beings, but the age of AI, we have to deal with super intelligence.
Oh, you watch too many Terminator movies.
But we won't even maybe realize that we're being attacked or hacked. So
once we go to superhuman era, if that's going to happen, then all bets are off. We can't figure out what's going to happen next. It's like animals looking at humans and trying to figure out what we're thinking. They can't possibly imagine what we're thinking.
Okay, so my final question. So your finished title, the bulk of your finished book was Internet. So you have been, in this field for more than 30 years. And what's your take on the Internet? Because your job is about the dark side of Internet. Do you think Internet was good for human beings or was it a bad thing?
Was it a mistake?
Was it a mistake?
No. It's great. I love the internet. Of course, we could think that these new developments bring us downsides. Internet brought us online crime, online war. Conspiracy theories are thriving again. We lost privacy, like we killed privacy because internet took over during our lifetime. But the upsides are much bigger than the downsides. And you could say the same things about any technical development, like electric grid. We're completely reliant on electricity. Nothing works without electricity. Our societies would collapse without electricity. And exactly the same thing will happen with connectivity. I think electricity was a great idea. I think the upsides have been much bigger than the fact that we are now reliant on it. The same thing will happen with connectivity. The same thing will happen with AI. I love the internet. It's the best thing and maybe the worst thing which we've invented during our lifetimes. But the upsides are much, much bigger than the downsides.
It's interesting you love internet because you're dealing with all these criminals, but you still...
I still love it, and I'm an optimist. People are surprised about the fact that I'm an optimist because I have indeed looked at the worst downsides of the internet, but I choose to be an optimist. I want to be an optimist because it's too late to be a pessimist.
Okay, thank you, Mikko. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.